How does one measure the return on investment that you receive from content marketing? That's the topic of this video. And a lot of people manage to overcomplicate this issue terribly. You don't have to create some gigantic, amazing dashboard with multiple attribution points to measure how much you're actually getting from your content. You need to do something practical. If you're a business owner, sometimes pragmatism is more valuable than a complicated dashboard. Let's dive into some key things that we need to be aware of when we're doing content marketing and measuring it to determine how much profit we get off of it.
So diving in, how do we actually measure the return on investment from content marketing when you're the owner and not an actual analyst? So I think that a lot of times people can make this far more complicated than what it is. So what I want to do is to jump in and just show you a few things that hopefully you're going to find helpful without having to pay someone to build some complicated dashboard that will be difficult if you're not a marketer to read. So why does content ROI feel unmeasurable? There's two problems here, and it can push you into an expensive mistake. The first problem is that a lot of time content doesn't pay off immediately. So there's a lag, and there's a time period that passes where it influences people, but it didn't make them buy right away. So someone can receive a piece of email content or marketing, and they may buy a year down the road, and so that's very, very difficult to measure and know what produced that. The second is the attribution problem. So content usually may assist the sale but may not lead to the sale, and a lot of times it doesn't close directly. So that credit is real, but it's hard to see what's actually going on. So it looks like nothing happened with the content, but it may be that your content is what helps people to make or break if they want it to become a lead and the sale started. So a lot of there are two extremes. Owners, they may quit before they actually allow their content to do its thing, or they may keep spending when they shouldn't be. Both of those end up being expensive because you're losing clients or you're losing money. And this is if you're an owner and you're kind of plateaued, you don't want to buy content just because you should, with no read on whether or not it's worth it. So we do want to do some kind of tracking. This is a formula that's common that everyone knows, but we want to talk about the formula more in detail. So the content return on investment equals the revenue from the content minus the cost of producing that content divided by the cost of the content. So that'll give you your content ROI. But let's talk a little bit about the cost of the content. The cost of the content isn't just what you pay someone to produce that. It's also about your time. And if you're producing your own content, that is also a cost. People that say, "Oh, when you produce your own content, it's free." That is totally false. That takes time. And so getting your real ROI number will always be better if you will actually calculate how much your time is worth. So if you're spending huge amounts of time and you can quantify that time somehow, the cost of your content is going to come out to be more realistic. And the revenue from the content, let's talk about that. To me, there are three things that you want to track, and you can use a lot of ways to track this. You're going to use your CRM system. You're going to use Google Analytics. You're going to use call tracking. Don't worry too much about views and likes. Views and likes are overblown stats, and they don't necessarily mean that those can be totally misleading, especially if you're getting views and likes from the wrong potential client. They may feel like progress, but they really don't tell you anything about revenue. So first, leads from content. Now, these are going to be calls that you can actually track on a piece of content with a tracking number. This could be forms on those same ones. These could be like a calculator completion where you get someone's email. anything where you can kind of ping and see what people did. Another thing that you could do as well is, and this is a little bit time consuming, but if you put Microsoft Clarity on your content, you can see what people are doing and what they're clicking on. And at scale, if you can go through that, you can even give that somewhat to AI and let it parse through that and give you some conclusions about the content and what people are doing as they scroll on it. And then the second thing that you're trying to track is if it influenced people inside the pipeline. Deals where content was one of the touches. So you should be able to set that up and track everything with UTM parameters within Google Analytics, and you can use other tools. But that's the second thing that you want to track. And then the third is the cost per lead versus channels. So your content's cost per lead against your ads, against referrals, et cetera, et cetera. You want to compare that, the actual action that was taken. So to me, those are the main three things that you want to track on your content. And you don't necessarily need complicated attribution software. I do recommend like Google Analytics or some other basic software that you might use with your ads. You don't need some giant, crazy dashboard. The lower tech one is on your intake forms for your content. Ask, how did you hear about us? That's underrated tool, and it actually is a little bit conducive to more to content. Now, if I ran an ad, I would never do that for an ad or for paid marketing, but you can get away with that with content. Number two, tag the lead by the source in your CRM. This should be easy to set up. So if you've got, say, UTM parameters on your content, that should be simple to set up. And then you want to watch the assist pattern. So you can do that with Google Analytics as well. And you can set all of that up. And that's basically going to give you an idea and a direction to know if those pieces of content are working and going to help you to calculate the ROI. It's not going to be perfect, but you didn't have to build some crazy dashboard. Rented reach versus an owned asset. This is why content ROI is measured differently and why it's the cheapest lead source you can own. Ads are rented. So you're paying for that click. The minute you stop paying, it stops. It's easy to measure, but also it's quick to go away once you quit paying for it. But content is owned. And content, by the way, could also be that someone gave you their email and now you're emailing them. That's one of the best ways to use ads because it goes from being a rented source to being something that you own and that you communicate with on a regular basis. It's an asset that you own, but it is an asset. The content assets that you put out, they remain there, especially if it's on your own site. It can keep working for years and years and years. An email list can keep working for years and years and years. And it may be slower to measure it. It may be harder to see the results, but it definitely can certainly compound. Content is definitely the cheapest long-term lead source that's more stable. But you do need to measure what does and doesn't work. You don't need to measure it perfectly, but measure it directionally. So what to finish here on this slide, we do have a revenue calculator that can help you to look at however it is that you're getting leads and what's happening inside of your business. And then will help you to discover across your whole funnel, not just the content, what exactly is leaking. How is it that your business can improve your processes? You can go to hivelymarketing.com. We'll also put in the description a link to the calculator. And you can go in and figure out and use that calculator.
So check out our lead calculator. It's going to be really valuable for you. Just to conclude and to sum up and to remind you, go ahead and take action. If you're not measuring your content well, you need to go back and look at it, set up Google Analytics, make sure everything's getting tagged inside your CRM. And you should be able to go back in a short term period and start to see what exactly your content is doing for you by just setting up some simple stuff in Google Analytics. And also the big key I want to remind you here as well, make sure you quantify the dollar amount of the hours that you are spending on content creation, whether you hired someone to do it or whether you're doing it yourself. And those are the big keys. You don't need a big PhD. You don't need to be some marketing genius or pay thousands of dollars for a dashboard. Just be smart about how you're measuring. Use basic tools like a CRM, Google Analytics, and call tracking.